Hello, everybody. Welcome to a pretty quick post-practice report. I am Brian Nemhauser, and I am excited to talk to you about some news that came out of the Seahawks camp today. We'll get into that in just a moment. If you have not already, give the show a like, click subscribe, head on over to Instagram and follow us there. If we get to 10,000 subscribers on Instagram, or 25,000 subscribers here on YouTube before the regular season, I will be giving away tickets to the Seahawks' first game against the San Francisco 49ers. You know what we want to have happen in that one. So let's get as many Seahawks fans in seats as possible. So news. So let's get to it. Uchenna Nwosu was activated off the physically unable to perform list. That is pretty big news because it has been a mystery up until now when he was going to come off, if he was going to come off, what the expectations were. John Schneider had said a while back during the offseason, he had a quote like cleanup around his knee, talked about maybe PUP, but it wasn't clear if PUP was going to be for training camp or whether he was going to go into the season on PUP. Well, as of now, with the team activating him, passing a physical, getting off PUP, what that means is that the team expects him to be back within the first 4 weeks of the season. It does not mean that he will be available for the first game of the season. And when Mike Macdonald was asked about this after practice, I wasn't there, but I talked to some other reporters who were there, and the implication was that he will be back early in the season, I think was the quote, which indicates probably not week one. There's about 3 weeks from now until the first game. Maybe he surprises and is ahead of schedule and is ready for that. I think it's probably more likely like week 3 would be my best guess, but I honestly am just wildly guessing there. I don't know. And now, able to watch Uchenna do increasingly aggressive conditioning drills to get back into shape on the sideline. He's not practicing yet. He still has to ramp up. He still has to get into a certain level of shape, but he has passed that physical. So that's a really big piece of news. And it affects what the Seahawks may or may not do, because I think they like their edge rush rotation, but news also is shared today that Trey Hendrickson and the deal that's going on with Cincinnati remains not positive, and that, they're potentially looking at a trade. And I still don't think it's likely that the Seahawks are going to make a deal like that, where they'd have to move probably a player and a draft pick and not extend him right away, because that's not how John Schneider does business since the Percy Harvin deal, where they extended Percy Harvin after the trade, and it ruffled a lot of feathers for guys that were already in the locker room. So I think it's kind of a system now where when they make a trade, even for Leonard Williams, where they give up a second and a fifth, they wait until the offseason and make sure that the guy fits into the locker room and that he's earned his stripes in Seattle before they extend him. So the idea that they would trade for a guy that probably is going to want $40 million, $35 million a year, give up draft capital, give up maybe a player, that seems unlikely, but it is possible. I still think the Jadeveon Clowney stuff is possible, but in place of who is kind of the question, and I'm not sure I've got a good answer for that one yet. So I think that news was pretty big. The other bit of news that I wanted to share was this is speculation. So maybe news is the wrong way to categorize it, but I mean, Jalen Sundell played really well in both preseason games. He played especially well against the Chiefs. And when I asked Mike Macdonald about Jalen Sundell after practice today, he just said he had a great game. All the coaches felt that way. And I asked him about whether you could tell that there's chemistry for Gray Zabel and Jalen Sundell having played together in college. And, he's like, yeah, I can't say I know that that's the reason, but you can tell that they work well together. I asked him if they've already made their decision at guard and center. And he said, he looked at me and side-eyed me and said, maybe. I think it's pretty clear that Jalen Sundell is going to be your starting center. I think it's pretty clear that Anthony Bradford's going to be your starting right guard. And I think that's pretty exciting. It's not because I think Olu Oluwatimi is bad or did anything really wrong. He missed some time due to injury, and I think that certainly played a role in this. It gave Jalen Sundell a lot of extra snaps. It gave him a lot of chances to play in preseason games where those snaps might have been going to Olu or likely would have been. And this is a guy that in Jalen Sundell that, won their offseason program, their Seahawks offseason program for conditioning and the work he's put in. I think they've been trying to find a way to get him in the starting lineup, whether it was at guard or at center. They even played him at tackle at some point. So I think that Jalen Sundell rising to the starting center position is and would be a really big deal, because as much as I like Olu Oluwatimi, one of the things we've talked about on this show for a while is that he's just not the same level of athlete that Jalen Sundell is. And I wrote about this in my morning after column on yesterday morning, but Jalen Sundell's RAS score, his relative athletic score, is in the 93rd percentile for centers. His speed grades are in the 90th percentiles. His explosion grades are in the high 80s. And when you look at the relative athletic score comps for Jalen Sundell as a center, the guys that come up are Creed Humphrey, Connor McGovern, Luke Wattenberg, things like players like that. And I'm going to look up on Mock Draftable actually while we're doing this to see if Jalen Sundell he does. So they have him for offensive line. The guys that Graham Barton is one of the highest, Graham Barton and Creed Humphrey are two of the most similar physical profiles to Jalen Sundell. And Olu Oluwatimi is just not quite that same athlete. And so I think the ceiling is much higher. I think the combination between Sundell and Zabel is really cool. I asked Abe Lucas, I asked Anthony Bradford today how it is playing next to Jalen Sundell. They say you can't really tell the difference. And I think that's actually a good thing. That's a compliment for him. But it seems like your Seahawks have their starting five. I think Charles Cross was back at practice today, participating in practice today. So you've got Charles Cross, Gray Zabel, Jalen Sundell, Anthony Bradford, and Abe Lucas across the way. That is a young group. In fact, let me look up Jalen Sundell's age. Jalen Sundell's 25. Abe Lucas is 26. Gray Zabel is 23. Charles Cross is 24. And Anthony Bradford is 24. So Abe Lucas is your oldest starter at 26 years old. What that tells you is that this group can be together for a long time. And again, I'm just going to keep hammering it. Like, make some of those deals now. Abe Lucas especially. But I think the difference between what he's going to cost now versus after the season is going to be the biggest difference. Anthony Bradford, it's interesting there with what he has done and how he has played. He is starting to make that 2023 draft look even better. Keep in mind the 2023 draft was Devin Witherspoon, JSN, already very good. Then Derek Hall and Zach Charbonnet, also very good. And then Anthony Bradford. So you add Anthony Bradford, if he plays close to how he's been playing in the preseason, that's going to be a starting guard for a long time. That draft also had Mike Morris. It also had Olu. So that draft is looking potentially like a building block draft for the Seahawks, the same way the 2022 draft was as well. All right, so let's get into quickly to the practice report, because there were some things. The high level here, the reason I want to come on here before I had to jet is because I think this offensive line news is a really big deal. And I think the Uchenna Nwosu news is a pretty big deal. What also was shared during the press conference, Torrey Horton has an ankle, was not practicing. I still don't think it's serious or anything like that, but that's all we heard. They practiced without pads today, What I will say is that the offense got after it. The offense got after it again. They look so good. And they were doing a red zone drill where Elijah Arroyo and Cody White and AJ Barner were just slicing and dicing the defense. And this is the number ones. This was JSN. This was Derek Young. Derek Young was getting a lot of run with the ones today without Torrey Horton practicing. It was Derek Young over Jake Bobo that was getting some of that run. Now, Bobo also was getting some reps there, but I'm not sure that Derek Young may let me put it this way. Derek Young may be ahead of Jake Bobo. Now, it also might be which position and receiver that they're being asked to play, but Derek Young had a really strong practice after having a really strong game and has had a very strong camp. So, I continue to look at, I haven't had a chance to do my 53-man roster. Maybe we'll do that tonight. Maybe we'll do it tomorrow. I don't know. But that's going to be one I have to stare at for a long time. And I'm increasingly just wondering whether or not the Seahawks are going to try to trade MVS, try to just swallow his contract and let him go. I think it'd be a very hard decision to let either Derek Young or Jake Bobo go. And we'll show you the roster math when I do that show, because I'll just keep them all. I don't know if you can. I really don't know where that spot's going to come from. So we'll talk about that when we get there. But Derek Young had another great day. Jake Bobo had a fine day. I just thought AJ Barner and Elijah Arroyo were the kind of stars on offense, making a lot of plays. Sam Darnold looks incredibly sharp, continues to just be precise, not turning the ball over. The turnovers that happened today were on Drew Lock or Jalen Milroe throws. In fact, I'm not sure I remember the last time that Sam Darnold threw an interception in practice. It's been a while. Drew Lock has definitely thrown a number more. Jalen Milroe's thrown a few. Sam Darnold, I don't think has thrown a pick in a week at least. I don't know. Honestly, I just don't remember. Another thing I'm kind of wondering about is I'm curious if they will try to showcase Christian Haynes and maybe get him a lot of playing time and see if there's a team that was enamored with him. He was a 3rd-round pick last year. Do they look to try to trade Christian Haynes? Because I just wonder if they really like some of their other young guards, whether it's Bryce Cabledew or Mason Richmond or Satawa Lamea. I wonder whether or not they feel like Christian Haynes is the guy that they want to be on the roster that they're developing, or one of these other guys. And maybe Christian Haynes doesn't have a lot of value, but the year after someone's drafted, often there's teams that are still pretty interested, because especially for a high round pick, because they might have some other idea how they can use him, and offensive linemen are needed everywhere. So that's and just a thought that occurred to me watching practice today is that something that could start being a storyline to keep an eye on. Other things, I think Cody White had a really nice day today, made some tough throws, some contested throws, some toe tip tap catches in the red zone. Jalen Milroe had another beautiful seam pass to Elijah Arroyo deep over the middle. Then he made another completion to Cody White. There was there was a lot of talking on the defense because they were not happy. They were getting beat like a drum, honestly, in this practice, especially in the red zone drill. Derek Young caught a big seam route from Sam Darnold. AJ Barner caught another big catch, big reception over the middle, and Kobe Bryant's, kind of clapped his hands, frustrated. Then he and AJ, slapped fives, dapped each other up, and went back to business. Next play, huge completion to AJ Barner, 20 plus yards along the right sideline. So that was, the tight ends today were just all over the place. Cooper Kupp caught a touchdown in the red zone. Kobe Bryant was annoyed again. So I'm looking at, there was a really nice touchdown catch by Elijah Arroyo over Nicky Manwari. He got coached up a little bit after that play. Nicky Manwari did. Cody White had another touchdown. This one was from Jalen Milroe beating Isas Waxter. Another touchdown to Elijah Arroyo. And after that one, I saw Mike Macdonald staring at the replay board. I think he was trying to figure out what was going on. Like, how is this continuing to happen? Kenneth Walker was practicing. I think Mike Macdonald's kind of sent another message after practice about that he needs to be out there for these practices. So we'll see what happens there. There was a fun play where Josh Jobe looked like he picked off Drew Lock, but then Derek Young wrestled it back out of his hands. It's a little bit of like the Fail Mary situation, but I think actually Derek Young might have pulled it back and might have been back to the offense. I don't know if it changed possession or not, but that was a pretty competitive play. Really nice rollout, throw on the run from Milroe to Cody White again, and then finishes off with Milroe hitting Cody for a 40-yard touchdown over the top. So the offense was dealing today. Sam Darnold was dealing today. Drew Lock and Jalen Milroe had their moments as well. And I think that's generally good news because give Mike Macdonald time with this defense and with the talent they've got on defense. I think they will figure out how to get the best out of this defense. The offense is the one that you really just want to see as much as possible. I got one super chat I probably have time for, and then I got to get going in a little bit. This is from Super Sauce, member for 15 months. Any chance they release Marquez Valdez-Scantling? Haven't seen him much. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. I think that there is a chance that happens. And let me walk through that in a second. Before I do, I am trying to make sure we get as many Seahawks fans in seats as possible for the regular season. And so I've teamed up with SeatGeek on a special deal that is limited time. So let's take advantage of that. Let me talk to you about it for a sec. Seahawks football is back. I cannot wait to see Lumen Field packed with Seahawks fans again, which is why I want to give the sponsor of today's video, SeatGeek, a huge shout out. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are more than 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek, including concerts, sports, festivals, and a bunch more. The NFL's just around the corner. The Mariners are chasing a World Series ring. One of the things I love about using SeatGeek is they've got your back. Each ticket's rated on a scale from 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. Green dot's good, red not as good, but you know what? Every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. Personally, I'm going to be using SeatGeek to buy some Mariners tickets for the stretch run. I may be tempted to get one of the Adam Sandler tickets. Who knows? They've got all sorts of things. If there's a ticket, SeatGeek's going to have it on there. And you know I came through for you guys. You can use code HawkBlogger, get $20 off tickets at SeatGeek. That's $20 off your first purchase with promo code HawkBlogger. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app. Have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you, SeatGeek. Awesome deal. All right, use that code HawkBlogger over at SeatGeek. If you click the link in the description of the video, it'll automatically add it to your account so you get $20 off your first order. Great deal. Let's get as many Seahawks fans in Lumen Field as possible. So about MVS, I think that the question is whether they'll find any takers. There's certainly been some injuries, and it's possible that someone will want him. It's also possible that Clint Kubiak, who has experience with him during the regular season, may just want him on the roster anyway. And at a $3.5 million guaranteed deal, I don't think they're just going to cut him. I think there's a chance they will, because if they really believe that their team is better off with other players, MVS is not a special teams guy. So if he's not going to be part of the offense, if Torrey Horton's going to be ahead of him, then you really are going to be looking at these other guys. Now, if Derek Young keeps playing the way he's playing, that might change their calculus a little bit. So it is one of the bigger questions left open to answer about this 53-man roster and about this offense in general. Fortunately, that's not that big of a deal, really, what they do there, because the third receiver is probably not going to be a huge part of this offense. And if Torrey Horton is the player that he looks like he's going to be, he'll get his reps, and whatever they do with MVS will be okay. So that was that. I did ask Mike Macdonald about special teams and how much, upon review with the issues they saw in the game, how much of that was, personnel, execution, scheme. And he said it was execution, that guys have got to get off blocks and make tackles. And so that's his evaluation, but just wanted to share that I did ask him about it. I did an interview with Anthony Bradford. If you're listening to the audio version of this pod, I will probably just combine the two into one show, and that'll be coming up here in a second. If you are watching the video version, you can go find the interview I did with Anthony Bradford elsewhere on the channel. Now, make sure you subscribe here. If we get to 25,000 subscribers on YouTube or 10,000 followers on Instagram, I'll be giving away tickets to the Seahawks game against the 49ers. Those are expensive seats. So we've got big goals for that to happen. Would love to have that happen so I can get as many Seahawks fans in there as possible. All right, everybody, I got a jet. Hopefully that was helpful. See you all soon. Take care.